Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. The coffee shop was quiet at 7 in the morning, with only the soft hum of the espresso machine and the gentle patter of rain against the windows. Maya had always loved this hour before the world fully awakened, when everything felt suspended in possibility. She wrapped her fingers around her warm mug and stared out at the empty street, wondering if today would be different from all the others. She didn't know that across the city, someone else was thinking the same thing. David pushed through the glass door, shaking droplets from his dark hair as he scanned the nearly empty cafe. He'd been coming here for 3 weeks now, since his promotion required him to relocate to this unfamiliar city. The barista knew his order by heart: large black coffee, no sugar, but he still felt like a stranger in his own life. That's when he saw her. Maya looked up from her book as the bell above the door chimed, and their eyes met for just a moment. Something electric passed between them, a recognition that neither could explain. She quickly looked away, her heart beating faster than it should have for a simple glance from a stranger. David ordered his coffee, stealing glances at the woman by the window. She had auburn hair that caught the morning light, and when she smiled at something in her book, he felt his chest tighten with an unfamiliar longing. He wanted to know what made her smile like that. For the next week, they became part of each other's morning routine without speaking a word. Maya would arrive at 7, David at 7:15. She'd sit by the window, he'd take the corner table. They'd exchange careful glances, soft smiles, and something that felt like silent conversations. On a Thursday morning, Maya's usual table was taken. She hesitated near the entrance, clutching her book and feeling oddly displaced. David watched her uncertainty and made a decision that would change everything. "You can share my table," he said, his voice gentle but confident. "I mean, if you want to." Maya really looked at him for the first time. His eyes were kind, with small lines at the corners that suggested he laughed often. There was something about the way he held himself that made her feel safe, even though they were complete strangers. "I don't want to disturb you," she said, but she was already moving toward his table. "I'd like the company," David replied, and meant it more than he'd expected. They sat across from each other, the small round table suddenly feeling intimate. Maya opened her book but found herself reading the same paragraph over and over. David pretended to check his phone but was actually memorizing the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm Maya," she said finally, closing her book and surrendering to the moment. "David." He smiled, and she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. "I've been wanting to introduce myself for a week." "Only a week?" Maya raised an eyebrow, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "I've been curious about you for 8 days." They talked until Maya realized she was going to be late for work. As she gathered her things, David felt a panic he hadn't experienced since high school. "Will you be here tomorrow?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Will you?" She countered, and they both knew the answer. The next morning, David arrived early and saved Maya's favorite table by the window. When she walked in and saw him there, her smile was brighter than the sunrise. They talked about books, about the city, about the way the rain made everything look like a painting. Maya learned that David had moved here for work, but was still trying to figure out where he belonged. David discovered that Maya was a librarian who wrote poetry in her spare time, and believed that coffee shops were where the best conversations happened. Their morning meetings became the highlight of both their days. Maya would find herself smiling at random moments, thinking about something David had said. David would catch himself staring out his office window, wondering what Maya was doing at the library. 3 weeks into their coffee shop friendship, Maya made a confession. "I've been thinking about you," she said, her cheeks flushing pink. "More than I should, probably." David reached across the table and touched her hand. Just a brief contact, but it sent electricity through both of them. "I think about you too," he said softly. "All the time, actually." That evening, David waited outside the library where Maya worked. When she emerged, surprised to see him, he felt nervous in a way that made him feel young again. "I know this might be forward," he said, "but would you like to have dinner with me? Somewhere that's not a coffee shop?" Maya's answer was in her smile before she even spoke. "I'd love that." Their first real date was at a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. They sat across from each other, the candlelight flickering between them, and talked until the servers started stacking chairs around them. Maya learned that David played guitar badly but passionately, that he'd once spent a summer teaching English in Thailand, and that he had a scar on his palm from trying to climb a tree to impress a girl in 7th grade. David discovered that Maya collected vintage postcards, that she could speak 3 languages, and that she had a laugh that made him want to spend his life finding new ways to hear it. When he walked her to her door, there was a moment of hesitation. They stood facing each other, the space between them charged with possibility. "I had a wonderful time," Maya said softly. "So did I." David's voice was rough with emotion. "Maya, She stepped closer, and suddenly the space between them disappeared. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, like a question being asked and answered. When they pulled apart, both were breathing like they'd been running. "I should go inside," Maya whispered, but she didn't move. "You should," David agreed, but his hands found her waist, pulling her closer. They kissed again, deeper this time, and Maya felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. When they finally separated, her keys were somehow in David's hand, and he was looking at her with an intensity that made her heart race. "I don't usually," she started to say. "Neither do I," David finished, understanding without explanation. Maya took her keys back, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "But I want to," she said, barely above a whisper. David's eyes darkened. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering, Maya unlocked her door and stepped inside, leaving it open behind her. David followed, closing the door softly behind him. Maya's apartment was exactly what he'd imagined, books everywhere, soft lighting, the scent of vanilla, and something uniquely her. She turned to face him, and they stood there for a moment, the weight of the decision hanging between them. "I've been thinking about this," Maya said, her voice barely audible. "About us, about what this could be." David crossed the room in 3 steps, cupping her face in his hands. "Maya, I need you to know this isn't just physical for me. I'm falling for you. Hard." Her response was to kiss him, pouring all her emotions into the connection between them. They moved together toward her couch, hands exploring, discovering, claiming. Every touch felt like a revelation, every kiss like coming home. They made love that night with a passion that surprised them both. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, 2 souls recognizing each other across the vast loneliness of the world. Afterward, they lay entwined, skin against skin, hearts beating in sync. "I can't believe this is real," Maya whispered against David's chest. "What do you mean?" he asked, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "This feeling, like I've been waiting my whole life for you without knowing it." David tightened his arms around her. "I know exactly what you mean." The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and burning desire. They couldn't seem to get enough of each other. Maya would text David from the library, and he'd find excuses to leave work early. They'd meet at his apartment, at her place, sometimes barely making it inside before they were in each other's arms. Their physical connection was intense, almost overwhelming. David would touch Maya's hand during dinner, and she'd feel heat spread through her entire body. Maya would smile at David across a crowded room, and he'd have to excuse himself to compose himself. "We're like teenagers," Maya laughed one evening as they lay in bed after making love. "I can't concentrate on anything anymore." "I know," David agreed, pressing kisses along her collarbone. "I tried to give a presentation yesterday and completely forgot what I was talking about, because I was thinking about you." "What were you thinking about specifically?" Maya asked, her voice taking on a teasing tone. David's answer was to show her rather than tell her, and soon they were lost in each other again. But beneath the physical passion, something deeper was growing. David would bring Maya coffee in the morning, remembering exactly how she liked it. Maya would leave little notes in David's jacket pockets, quotes from poems that reminded her of him. They'd lie awake talking until dawn, sharing dreams and fears, and the small details that make up a life. "I love the way you think," David told her one night as they lay in the dark. "The way you see the world. It's like you find magic in ordinary things." "I love how safe you make me feel," Maya replied. "Like, I can be completely myself with you." They were falling deeply in love, but neither had said the words yet. The phrase hung in the air between them during quiet moments, waiting to be spoken. The first crack in their perfect bubble came on a Tuesday evening. Maya was at David's apartment, curled up on his couch reading while he cooked dinner. His phone rang and she heard his voice change when he answered. "Mum, I can't talk right now," he said, glancing at Maya. "No, I haven't told her yet. It's complicated." Maya tried to focus on her book, but she couldn't help overhearing fragments of the conversation. Something about Chicago. Something about a decision that needed to be made. When David hung up, he looked troubled. "Everything okay?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice light. "Yeah, just work stuff," David said, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. That night, as they lay in bed, Maya felt a distance between them that hadn't been there before. When she tried to talk about it, David kissed her instead, using their physical connection to avoid the conversation. Over the next few days, Maya noticed other small changes. David seemed distracted, checking his phone more often. He'd start to say something and then stop, shaking his head. The easy intimacy they'd built was still there, but there was something else now, a tension that made Maya's stomach clench. With worry, "Are you pulling away from me?" Maya asked one evening as they sat in their coffee shop, the place where it all began. "No," David said immediately, reaching for her hand. "Maya, no, I'm crazy about you. You know that." "Then what's going on? You've been different lately." David was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. When he looked up, there was pain in his eyes. "My company wants to transfer me to Chicago," he said quietly. "It's a promotion. A big one. The kind of opportunity I've been working toward for years." Maya felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "When?" "Next month." The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Maya's mind raced through possibilities, through questions she was afraid to ask. "That's wonderful," she said finally, trying to sound supportive even as her heart was breaking. "You must be excited." "I haven't said yes yet," David said quickly. "I can't decide." "Why not?" "It sounds like an amazing opportunity." David looked at her like she was missing something obvious. "Because of you, Maya. Because I can't imagine leaving you." Maya's heart soared and broke at the same time. "David, you can't turn down your dream job for me. You've only been together for 2 months. "It doesn't feel like 2 months," David said fiercely. It feels like forever. Like you're the person I've been looking for my whole life. But I love you, David said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I'm in love with you, Maya. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. I love you too, she whispered. More than I thought possible. They reached for each other across the small table, holding hands like lifelines. But even as they spoke the words they'd been carrying in their hearts, the shadow of his potential departure hung over them. What are we going to do? Maya asked. I don't know, David admitted. But I know I don't want to lose you. That night, they made love with a desperate intensity, as if they could somehow hold back time through the strength of their connection. Afterward, they lay awake talking about the future, about possibilities, about the cruel timing of love and ambition. I could ask if there's a position in Chicago for you, David said. Libraries exist everywhere. I just got promoted to head. Librarian, Maya replied. And my whole life is here, my friends, my family. Long distance? David suggested, but they both knew how difficult that would be. We could try, Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. The next few weeks were bittersweet. They spent every possible moment together, as if they could store up enough memories to last a lifetime. Their physical connection remained as strong as ever. If anything, it intensified, fueled by the knowledge that their time might be limited. They made love in the morning before work, stealing extra moments in bed. They met for lunch, finding empty conference rooms and stolen kisses. They spent entire weekends in bed, talking and touching and trying to memorize each other. I can't stop touching you, David said one evening as they lay tangled together on Maya's couch. Even when we're just sitting here, I need to feel you next to me. I know, Maya replied, her hand tracing circles on his chest. It's like I'm addicted to you. We are pretty pathetic, David laughed, but there was sadness in it. The pathetic couple who can't keep their hands off each other, Maya agreed. David's decision deadline approached like a storm on the horizon. Maya watched him struggle with it, saw the way it weighed on him. She wanted to tell him to stay, to choose her, but she also knew that would be selfish. She loved him too much to let him sacrifice his dreams. 3 days before he had to give his answer, David came to the library where Maya worked. She was surprised to see him in the middle of the day, and worried by the expression on his face. Can we talk? He asked. They walked to a quiet corner between the poetry and philosophy sections, surrounded by the words of people who'd tried to make sense of love and loss for centuries. I've made my decision, David said, his voice tight with emotion. Maya felt her heart stop. And? I'm going to Chicago. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She'd known this might happen, had tried to prepare herself, but nothing could have readied her for the actual moment. When? She asked, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. 2 weeks. Maya nodded, trying to process the information. That soon. Maya, It's okay, she interrupted, though it wasn't. You're doing the right thing. I'm proud of you. David reached for her, but she stepped back. If he touched her now, she'd fall apart, and she refused to make this harder for him than it already was. I need some time, she said, to think about everything. Of course, David said, though she could see the hurt in his eyes. I understand. Maya walked away from him then, through the stacks of books that had always been her refuge, and somehow made it to the bathroom before she broke down completely. That night, David called and texted, but Maya couldn't bring herself to respond. She sat in her apartment, surrounded by reminders of him, his coffee mug in her sink, his jacket on her chair, the book of poetry he'd bought her marked with his careful notes in the margins. The next day, Maya didn't go to the coffee shop. For the first time in months, she broke their routine. David waited for her. She knew, because he texted her a picture of 2 coffee cups on their usual table. "I got your favorite," his message read, "just in case." Maya stared at the photo until her vision blurred with tears. They spent the next week in a strange limbo. Maya avoided the coffee shop. David respected her space, but they were both miserable. Maya's friends noticed her distraction. David's co-workers commented on his mood. They were like 2 people learning to breathe underwater. 5 days before David's departure, Maya couldn't stand it anymore. She went to his apartment, using the key he'd given her weeks ago. She found him packing, surrounded by boxes and the life he was preparing to leave behind. "Maya," he said, looking up from where he was wrapping dishes in newspaper. "I didn't think you were coming." "I couldn't stay away," she admitted. "I tried, but I couldn't." David stood up, crossing the room to her. "I'm so sorry," he said. "For all of it. For falling for you just to leave. For making you love me when I couldn't stay." "Don't apologize for loving me," Maya said fiercely. "Don't you dare apologize for that." They came together then, desperate and hungry and heartbroken. They made love surrounded by moving boxes, their bodies saying goodbye in a language they both understood. Afterward, they lay on David's bed, holding each other in the gathering darkness. "I wish I could hate you," Maya whispered. "It would make this easier." "I wish I could stop loving you," David replied. "But I can't. I won't ever stop loving you." Maya spent David's last 3 nights in the city with him. They didn't talk about the future or make promises they couldn't keep. They just existed in the present, touching and talking and trying to make peace with the impossible situation. On David's last morning, Maya woke up first. She watched him sleep, memorizing the way his hair fell across his forehead, the way his chest rose and fell with each breath. When he opened his eyes and found her watching, he smiled sadly. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," she replied, and somehow that simple exchange contained everything they couldn't say. They made love one last time, slow and gentle and full of goodbye. Then David had to leave for the airport, and Maya had to figure out how to live in a world that no longer contained him. "I'll call you," David said at the door, his suitcase in his hand. "I know," Maya said, though they both knew it wouldn't be enough. They kissed goodbye, and Maya tasted tears, his or hers, she couldn't tell. Then David was gone, and Maya was alone in an apartment that still smelled like him. For weeks afterward, Maya felt like she was sleepwalking through her life. She went to work, came home, ate dinner, went to bed. She avoided the coffee shop completely, couldn't bear to see their table empty. David called and texted, and she responded because she loved him. But every conversation was a reminder of what they'd lost. "I hate Chicago," David told her one evening over the phone. "The coffee is terrible, and no one reads books on the train." "Give it time," Maya said, though her heart wasn't in the encouragement. "I miss you," David said. "Every day, every moment. I miss the way you smell, the way you laugh, the way you look when you're reading." "I miss you too," Maya admitted. "I miss everything about you." They tried to make it work long distance, but it was torture. They'd have wonderful conversations and then hang up feeling more alone than before. They'd plan visits that fell through because of work or distance, or the simple exhaustion of trying to love someone from so far away. 3 months after David left, Maya made a decision. She was in the coffee shop. She'd finally returned to their old routine when she called him. "I think we need to take a break," she said without preamble. David was quiet for a long moment. "Are you sure?" No, Maya said honestly. But I think it's what we need to do. We're both holding on to something that's making us miserable. I don't want to let you go, David said, his voice breaking. I don't want to let you go either, Maya replied. But maybe that's exactly why we need to. They hung up after saying goodbye, and Maya sat in the coffee shop crying into her latte, while the barista pretended not to notice. For the next 6 months, Maya threw herself into her work and her life. She traveled with friends, took a pottery class, started writing poetry again. Slowly, carefully, she began to heal. She still thought about David every day, but the sharp edge of loss began to dull into something more manageable. David, meanwhile, threw himself into his new job. He worked long hours, made new friends, explored Chicago. He dated a few people, but nothing serious. No one made him feel the way Maya had. He wondered if anyone ever would again. Sometimes, late at night, he'd call Maya's number just to hear her voicemail. He never left a message, but he needed to hear her voice. Even if it was just a recording. Maya knew David was calling. She could see the missed calls from his number, but she never answered. She wasn't ready. She might never be ready. A year after David left, Maya was promoted to head librarian at the Central Branch. It was a dream job, everything she'd worked toward. She should have been thrilled, but all she could think about was how David would have been proud of her. That same week, David was offered a promotion that would move him to Los Angeles. As he sat in his Chicago apartment, staring at the offer letter, all he could think about was Maya, about how she'd tell him to follow his dreams, even if it meant moving further away from her. He called her that night, for the first time in months. Maya? It's David. I know, she said softly. I see your missed calls. You do? I do. I couldn't pick up. I wasn't ready. Are you ready now? Maya considered the question, feeling the familiar ache in her chest that David's voice always brought. I don't know. Why are you calling? David told her about the promotion, about the choice he faced. I keep thinking about what you tell me to do, he said. I tell you to take it, Maya said without hesitation. It sounds amazing, even if it means moving further away from you. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the old pain resurface. Especially then. I think about you every day, David said quietly. About us, about what we had. I think about you too, Maya admitted. But David, what's the point? We tried, and it didn't work. We live in different worlds now. Do we? David asked. Or do we just live in different cities? Maya didn't have an answer for that. They talked for 2 hours that night, catching up on their lives, laughing at old jokes, falling back into their easy rhythm. When they hung up, Maya felt like her carefully constructed peace had been shattered. Next day, David called again, and the day after that. Soon, they were talking every evening, rebuilding their connection across the distance. Maya felt herself falling for him all over again, and it terrified her. We're doing it again, she said one night. Getting attached when we can't be together. Maybe that's okay, David said. Maybe it's better to have this than nothing at all. Maya wanted to believe him, but she was scared. She'd worked so hard to move on, to build a life that didn't revolve around missing David. She wasn't sure she could survive losing him again. 2 weeks later, David called with news that changed everything. I turned down the promotion, he said. Maya felt her heart stop. You what? I turned it down. I'm coming home, Maya. I'm coming home to you. David, no, Maya said, panic rising in her chest. You can't do that. You can't give up your career for me. I'm not giving up my career, David said. And choosing my life. I'm choosing you. But the job. There are other jobs. There's only one you. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. David, what if we try again and it doesn't work? What if we're just not meant to be together? Then at least we'll know, David said. But Maya, I can't spend my life wondering what if. I love you. I've never stopped loving you. And I think you love me too. I do, Maya whispered. I love you so much it scares me. Then let me come home, David said. Let me try to make this work. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. She could say no, could protect herself from the possibility of heartbreak. Or she could say yes, could choose love over fear. Okay, she said finally. Come home. David's flight landed on a Tuesday evening in March. Maya waited for him at the airport, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it over the noise of the crowd. When she saw him walking toward her, looking tired and hopeful and achingly familiar, she felt like she could finally breathe again. They didn't say anything at first. They just held each other in the middle of the busy airport, crying and laughing and trying to believe this was real. I can't believe you're here, Maya said into his shoulder. I can't believe you let me come back, David replied, holding her tighter. They went to their old coffee shop, of course. It was evening, and the place was nearly empty, except for a few students studying in the corner. They sat at their old table by the window, holding hands across the small surface. So what now? Maya asked. Now we figure it out, David said. Together. You sure about this? About giving up Chicago? David lifted their joined hands and pressed a kiss to Maya's knuckles. I'm sure about you, he said. I'm sure about us. The rest we'll figure out as we go. Maya smiled, feeling hope bloom in her chest for the first time in over a year. I love you, she said. I never stopped loving you. I love you too, David replied. And this time, I'm not going anywhere. They talked until the coffee shop closed, planning and dreaming and rediscovering each other. When they finally left, walking hand in hand through the city streets, Maya felt like she was returning to a life she thought was lost forever. That night, in Maya's apartment, they made love with a tenderness that spoke of second chances and hard-won wisdom. They were older now, more careful with each other's hearts, but the passion between them burned as bright as ever. We couldn't keep our hands off each other, Maya said afterward, laughing as she traced patterns on David's chest. And we still can't, David replied, pulling her closer. I hope we never can. Maya looked up at him, seeing their future in his eyes. It wouldn't be easy, love never was, but it would be worth it. They'd found their way back to each other against all odds. And this time, they weren't letting go. Outside. The city settled into sleep around them, but inside Maya's apartment, two hearts that had been broken and healed and broken again finally found their rhythm. They couldn't keep their hands off each other, and they never wanted to learn how. Some love stories end with goodbye. Others begin with hello. But the best ones, the ones that matter, are about two people who choose each other again and again. No matter what the world throws at them. David and Maya's love story was one of those. It was about finding each other, losing each other, and fighting their way back to each other. It was about the kind of love that leaves you breathless and the kind of connection that makes you believe in magic. As they fell asleep in each other's arms, Maya smiled into the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new moments to choose love over fear. But tonight, they were together. Tonight, they were home. And sometimes, that's all the forever you need.